U.S. President-elect Donald Trump is calling for an immediate ceasefire in Ukraine. Trump's appeal comes after he met with his Ukrainian and French counterparts in Paris. Ukraine's president described the talks as constructive. Trump claimed in a social media post that Kyiv would like to make a deal and urged Russian President Vladimir Putin to bring the fighting to an end. Trump says the war has seen too many lives needlessly wasted and negotiations should begin. With more on everything that seems to be happening around the globe, we are joined now by CTV Military analyst, retired Major General David Fraser today. Good to have you, sir. Thanks for taking the time.
Lindsay, good to be with you on a busy Sunday.
Yes, very busy. I want to talk about Donald Trump and Ukraine, but let's first start with Syria and talk about that. Obviously, we're seeing Syrians around the world rejoicing at this news. But what do you take away from this? What does this mean for the country?
Well, since the 7th of October, terrorist groups and rebel groups have taken the advantage and to prosecute their own operations. And this is the latest one with HTS, which is absolutely taken over a country in record speed, probably to the surprise of themselves along with Syrians. But really, it puts into question what happens now in the transition with a group that's never run a country before. And, the big losers here are Russia, Iran. Winners are Turkey, and the big question mark is Israel. What do they think now? They are literally surrounded by fractional groups, and including Syria now, which doesn't have a government. So it's going to put a lot of strain on the region, and the real question mark is what happens next.
I kind of like that you separated the winners and the losers here. I do want to talk about both. Russia and Iran I do want to talk about, but let's first talk about the impact this might have on that ongoing conflict in the Middle East. Obviously, Syria is right in the middle of it, geographically speaking.
Well, absolutely. And Syria has, traditionally been supporters of Hezbollah. They've been supporters of the other, terrorist groups out there. Well, their support's gone. And that means that Russia's proxy is gone, and Russia was supporting the regime right up until the last couple of days, and now so their power in the region and their proxy for the power has disappeared. The same thing with Iran. So both countries use other organizations and countries to prosecute. Those are no longer there. So it's a real problem for Russia. It's going to be a real problem for Iran. Iran's had real issues throughout all this. And, for the short term, it certainly is going to be a benefit for Israel. But will this actually help them in the mid to long term? And what's Turkey going to do? And what are the Kurds going to do? There's an awful lot of questions, more than there are answers.
Yeah. I mean, this is obviously very, very new, very developing. The UN also urging the country to rebuild now after this. So what would that look like?
Well, it's, what the UN says, it sounds good on TV, but the reality is the current regime that's there, the former Assad regime, can they find some sort of common ground for the people of Syria and to bring back people, the refugees? Can they find some common ground to work with this rebel group, the HTS, to keep normalcy in the country in a more humane way than what Assad has done for the last 50 years? That's where going to be the real challenge for Syrians. Can they come together and not just foster and do payback for things that have happened in the past, decades? The question is, can Syrians actually bring their country to a better form of governance than what they've had? The next few days, we're going to find out if this is peaceful or if it turns into something more chaotic.
Yeah, it should be pretty quickly that we find that out. Your signal's lagging a little bit, but I'm hoping we can just touch on one more subject before we let you go, and that is switching gears completely. Donald Trump's calling for an immediate ceasefire in Ukraine. We know when he was campaigning, he said that if he was elected, he would end that war within 24 hours. That didn't happen, but now calling for this ceasefire. What do you make of his comments in terms of the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine?
I think the world has got to pay attention to Donald Trump. First and foremost, he is not a big proponent of Ukraine. He believes, and is probably working behind the scenes. He was very vague when he was talking about has he reached out to Putin already. But I think fundamentally, he's going to finish this war for all the right reasons. There's been enough killing here. and it's only a matter of time whether or not that he can get a deal out of Putin. Zelensky seems to be ready for a deal, so let's see if Putin's ready for a deal. Let's see if that relationship can end the fighting, which is probably taking close to 1 million casualties, 1 million, in such a short period of time. Staggering. It does mean, though, 22% of Ukraine is no longer Ukraine, it's Russia. But, I think Trump can probably bring resolution to this in some shape or form.
Just to bring things back full circle, do you think what's happening in Syria will impact Russia's decisions in terms of what it does with Ukraine going forward?
I don't think so. I think they're two completely separate things. I think, the fact that they've lost out in Syria, they might even use the Trump, negotiations and ceasefire to their advantage so they can lose in Syria, but maybe they can win over in Ukraine by saying they took 22% of the country, achieved their own political goals. So don't underestimate Putin and how he can manipulate the message to his own political needs. So I think, let's watch for how that unfolds with the Trump negotiations.
Yeah, okay. Interesting stuff, as always, and lots to watch for. That's CTV military analyst and retired Major General David Fraser joining us live. Thanks so much for your time.
Lindsay, thank you.